Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, to start off, I'm Noah Jones. I go to Suffolk University. Right now, I'm an entrepreneurship major here, and I own my own company that focuses on video game development on Roblox.com.
Great. Nice to be here with you, Noah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I hope you're going to find this super interesting. We're very excited to be here. And yeah, my name is David. I just graduated from my MBA from Babson College. My first time here at Suffolk, beautiful campus, amazing view over here. So super excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. What's your company and what's its mission?
All right. So the name of our company is Predictia. And what we do is inventory optimization and merchandising optimization for fashion companies. What it means is basically we help fashion companies offer the right products in the right quantities and sizes to maximize profitability and reduce waste. Not sure if you guys are familiar with this problem in the fashion industry, which is that there is a huge overproduction problem in the industry. Between 30 to 40% of the yearly production of fashion is either sold under the cost or goes directly into waste. And that, of course, means huge financial losses to the industry, around $400 billion every year. So what we're doing is that we are developing some AI technologies in order to understand the fashion products, that's footwear and apparel, from an image perspective, and not only from an SKU code perspective, and then deploy some other forecasting models based on that. So that's probably too much, but I'll be happy to talk further about it later.
Yeah, we'll break that down a bit more later. But on my side, for my company, I do video game development on Roblox.com. What that is it's the biggest video game platform globally, right? So you have a bunch of different kind of competitors, but that's kind of the top of the top. That ranges from, I think it's like 6 all the way up. They're trying to expand into 21 plus, and they're trying to overall get older. But I started that roughly 5 to 6 years ago in high school, maybe a little bit more. I officially incorporated in 2020 as an S corp, and it's kind of took off during COVID, because all the kids were home, they were playing video games. So that's kind of when everything started. And right now, I'm kind of looking to take that to the next level. I'm looking to kind of incorporate marketing into that as well, which we'll kind of elaborate more on.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Super impressive.
Yeah. So I guess next question, what motivated you to start your business?
All right. So I grew up in the fashion industry. I think I can say that. Both of my parents have been working in fashion for the last 40 years, both in footwear and apparel. So I really grew up loving the industry. I believe fashion is the second most powerful art expression nowadays. Probably the first one is music, and then close second is going to be fashion. Everyone is wearing fashion pieces every day of their lives. So that sets the basis for a really huge industry with a lot of potential, and also the infrastructure that supports this industry has a huge potential. But at the same time, there's a lot of inefficiencies in the fashion industry, in the fashion supply chain, in particular, the problem of inventory optimization and demand forecasting that I was telling you before. So even though I love the industry, I wanted to add more meaning to my professional life. And that was by helping to solve that problem of overproduction and demand forecasting in the industry, and not only just selling more and more products.
Definitely. Yeah. I think the main topic too has always been AI. So, personally, we'll get into that a little later. But what motivated me was I've always had kind of a love for gaming, right? So I'd say early on, I had a few friends that kind of, stepped their foot right into the Roblox development space. And they kind of talked a little about it right when I tried it. I think the first or second game I did, it got a lot of traction. What I did was I took advantage of, there were a bunch of YouTubers that came to the platform from another game called Minecraft. And what they did was they wanted to try something new, so it came to Roblox. So one of these individuals had a YouTube channel with 25 million subscribers, right? So he came to Roblox. What I did was okay, how do I get him to play the game? Because this is a very basic game, right? All I did was I took a basic made kit that literally anyone can use, right? So there were a million games already like it. And what I did was I plopped that in the game, and every game has a little image, a square image they can use, I guess for people to see the game, right? You want to see an image of it. So what I did was I used his logo as that image, and he saw it right away and he played it. And then right when he hit that, it exploded. And I think it got 20,000 players or something, which at the time, this was before anyone knew what kind of Roblox was, right? So it did amazing, and that's what kind of like fueled, I guess, like my passion for it. And I was like, okay, I can actually do this. And this was like in 2017, 2018. I mean, you really couldn't even make that much from Roblox at the time. But that kind of like was when it solidified itself. And I was like, okay, I can actually do this. Then I learned more as time went on. I was like, okay, I can hire people. I can kind of read code on my own too, because I've been doing it for so long. But like I've never been able to like sit down and like code a full game. So like I kind of knew what I was looking for in that space, because like I was kind of doing it a little bit because I could read the code when I was setting up the initial game. But I started finding coders, gave them a percentage of the revenue, and that's kind of when it skyrocketed. Then COVID kind of, helped it take off. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm ready to keep going with it.
That's great.
Yeah, definitely.
You're doing awesome. So you started coding the first games by yourself before you started hiring some developers, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like I never actually coded on my own. What there was like a free to use kind of like, I guess, make your own game kit, right? That literally a bunch of games use, and every game for the most part was the same, right? You would just slap like a different name on it. So I think mine was like Candy Tycoon or something like that, right? And the whole thing was you build a candy factory, but like the actual factory itself was already like a pre-made thing that every single game at that time kind of used. Because I mean, Roblox at that time, it didn't IPO, it wasn't public, not that many people knew about it. I mean, it still had an audience, but it really wasn't anywhere near where it is right now. So I got my foot kind of in early, and that's kind of when it all took off. Then like through using that kit, I kind of learned like not coding itself. Like I could never write it from scratch, but like I learned how to kind of read it and do all that stuff. And that's kind of what, helped me kind of find the right coder too. Cause I knew somewhat what I was looking for. I could kind of read and see if is this person a good coder? Is this person not a good coder? Cause you can kind of tell, especially when it's kind of like reading handwriting, right? If someone's writing messy, you can tell they're writing messy. So if you want a good coder, kind of what I realized is you don't want a lot of stuff repeating basically. So I kind of looked for that stuff, found the right person. He handled that side of it, took off. Then I started hiring more coders, and it worked out very well.
That's impressive. Great traction. Great traction. Man.
Yeah. So let's fast forward to like today's age. The big thing right now is AI, right? So personally, incorporating AI wise, I haven't really incorporated it that much. I'm kind of looking into it more. But the big thing for me is I've always struggled actually drawing stuff, right? So I've always tried to draw something like basic in paint. Like, for example, the images for the game I was talking about, I would try and sketch it out, detail what every single thing is. But now they're AI that I use that can literally, like, I put in like a bunch of keywords, what I want, explain it, then it generates a full image, right? So how do you kind of incorporate AI into your company?
Okay, great. Yeah, actually, we would like to say that we're not using AI because everyone needs to use AI nowadays. We don't believe that's the case. Of course, AI is a really powerful tool, but there are use cases that make a lot of sense, and there are use cases that are probably just like really being forced into being useful. So in our case, the challenge was, okay, if you're trying to forecast demand of fashion products, if you want to know how well a product is going to sell in the future, you need two things. You need to know some history or historical data of that product, right? Or similar products. And then you need to know what are the trends of the future. That's basically how it works. So in fashion, there's something very particular about this industry, which is that 80% of the products are new every season. So when you try to run forecasts only based in the product name or the SKU code, you don't have the past data. So how we're using AI is that we are replacing those SKU codes with some computer vision algorithms. Computer vision is one of the verticals of AI, which is like image recognition, in order to understand how the products look from a physical standpoint, from a visual standpoint. So we analyze the pictures of those products, and then we cluster together all the products that look together, and then we can break that barrier of not having past information. And then similarly, we do it with the trends. So we say, okay, this is what's in fashion right now. This was successful in the past, but then where should the company evolve to? What's the direction in which this brand needs to start pointing towards? So that's where the fashion trends come in very handy, and we can match the products that are being analyzed or designed at the moment with those trends that are going to be relevant in the future. And then once we have those matches, then we can say, okay, this product is going to be successful, this one is not, and then you should produce these quantities of this product and make more money and not have excess of inventory, right? So yeah, that's pretty much how we do it.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, for the next question, I think the big thing too, especially for this panel, is how do you balance school and, whatever your company is? Like, how do you find that balance?
All right. So yeah, that's a challenge, and that's probably like the main topic of today's conversation. So yeah, are there any more student founders here in the audience? One, two, three, four. Good. So yeah, guys. I mean, I think you already know this, but it's of course it's challenging. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And basically, what I what I believe is while you're studying, I would say it's probably the best time to start a company. And the reason why I believe that is firstly because you're being exposed to new information all the time. You have like new ideas hitting your mind every day, and that's a huge opportunity for coming out with something creative, something that is actually out of the box. Second of all, you're being surrounded by smart, like-minded people all the time. You have other faculties in your same college or university where you can reach out to talent which is complementary to your skills. So that's also something very important. And third of all, I would say, and this is probably the most important aspect, is that you can play your student card to do run pilots, to do customer discovery, and that's huge. Like once you graduate, like I still use it. Like I still say, hey, I'm a Babson College graduate student, or recently graduated from my graduate program, because that opens a lot of doors. People want to help, they want to talk to you. They've been in your shoes as a student, so that's super cool. Once you start sounding more like a professional, a real life company, they're gonna be like, yeah, you're gonna try to sell me stuff, and they might be a little bit more reluctant. So playing that student card, I would say, is huge. And probably one last thing is the only thing you don't have a lot of is time, right? You have probably 4 to 6 classes, and then you have to do homework, and then you still wanna hang out with friends and go to the gym. So if you can like try to kill two birds with the same stone, in the sense of like, okay, take the classes that are more closely related to what you're doing, to your venture, to your topic. So if you're in the middle of raising your first round, then take a venture capital class, and that's gonna make you more motivated to learn more about the class, to do a better job, to get better grades, and in turn, you're gonna be more successful at your fundraise, right? In my case, I took machine learning classes, I took digital transformation classes, supply chain classes, fundraising, which were the things that I was needing at the time. Probably you're having a similar experience, but that's what I can say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you kind of, said a lot of the things I was going to say. So I definitely agree with that. I think the major thing for me too has been like, there have been, obviously you're going to have classes that, you're not as interested in. And one thing that I've kind of struggled with is like, if you have some work to do for your company and you're sitting in that class with a laptop, it is very hard not to get some work done, right? During that class. So all the professors here, close your ears for that one. But I'd say that's kind of the big thing is like, it's, work always pops up in my mind personally, right? So if I'm sitting there, I always want to get stuff done. I mean, I've been out with friends, for example, and I've, pulled out the laptop. So, I mean, that's been a struggle for me. Like, it's always the number one thing on my mind, especially in school, right? Because you're setting up literally the rest of your life. This is what I plan on doing for the foreseeable future, right? So I want to kind of work on it for as much as I can, whenever I can. So, I mean, that's kind of been the struggle. And I've been trying to work on that, but it's a tough thing to kind of go through and face, but you did it. I'll get it done. A lot of other people get it done, right? So that kind of leads into the next question too. Have there been any, classes or people that have helped you well in school kind of take your company and, skyrocket it, and while you've been in school, like kind of set it up for the foreseeable future?
Yes, definitely. So I would say the first example that comes into my mind is where it all started, which was in a graduate class called Agile Experimentation. Okay. So basically, it was all about like agile methodologies, Scrum, and all these kind of things. And basically, I had the idea in mind, and I knew it had potential from an industry perspective. I had been in the shoes of the buyers and merchandisers, and I knew it was a pain, but I knew there were many moving parts related to that problem that needed to be aligned in the right way. So like the way of like structuring a project, finding the right talent in terms of co-founders, and how to make it work in an aligned way and be able to motivate them with showing them like what we could accomplish together, but at the same time being organized in terms of the steps. So I think like having that strong basis to start was fundamental.
Yeah, and I mean with a school like Babson, they definitely do that too. I've heard a lot about the program, so that must have helped as well. I mean, in my case, personally, like my first 2 years, first year, freshman year was completely online. So like I really didn't, take advantage of anything really that much. In the second year, right when I got on campus, I really didn't do the same. And for the most part, I wasn't really involved in anything until I'd say last year, which is kind of incredible. It's my senior year, so I didn't really take advantage of anything until junior year. For the most part, like I would sit in class. Nobody knew I had a company. Nobody kind of knew anything about me. Then I randomly just said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I have a company that's doing pretty well." But there have been tons of professors that have helped me who have been understanding. Two of them are in the crowd right now. Shout out to Haim and Sherry. Been wonderful helps. I've had a few others as well, but I think the main thing too is if there are things you can take advantage of from your school, like for example, you've probably had multiple as well. Like here at Suffolk, we had a pitch competition, right, where you could enter into it, kind of say what your business is, and you had the chance of winning money. And what I did was like I entered that, right, and my company had a decent amount of revenue. I went into that thinking like, okay, I don't really know how I'm gonna justify the amount of money that you would win from that. But I ended up meeting someone that I'm working with in the future from that competition. So like you really have to take advantage of every opportunity you can because you never know when you're going to meet someone. Like I went into that presentation more as practice because, public speaking has always been something I haven't been the best at. I improved on that. Then after that, like we started talking and it's kind of skyrocketed from there. So that's been amazing.
True. That's right. So we have something similar at Babson called the Beta Challenge. So it's also like a pitch competition, and you pitch your company. There's a couple of rounds, and then you have the finals with investors and everything. So yeah, like taking advantage of those opportunities is huge. That invites people to comment on your idea, to like show what's the reaction, understand how potential clients understand your product. It validates that you're thinking in the right direction or not. So like getting out to the public as soon as possible, it's always key, and those are great opportunities to do it. And also, I know you're part of an entrepreneurship club here at Suffolk.
Yep.
So those experiences and opportunities. So a couple of friends here from the Babson Acceleration Club as well. That was like another great experience and another great space within your education to start thinking about starting companies.
Definitely, like to kind of add on to that too, if your school has like a program like that, I definitely take advantage of it. Even if you don't have a company yet, you have an idea, like there are tons of people who have that too. So I mean, like I definitely take advantage of that because people will help you. That's something I realized, like people really do want to help you and they'll do everything they can to help you as well, which has kind of been huge for me. So kind of straying a little away from that, as for organization, especially like with the whole work-life balance thing, have there been any like tools you've used to kind of balance yourself and organize your company? Like, do you kind of use anything like that?
Yeah, probably I'm not the best example for organizational tips necessarily.
Yeah,
but but yeah, there's a couple of them. So I'm a really big fan of like doing time boxing of my different tasks within my day using the Google Calendar or Outlook calendar. So yeah, one thing is the meetings, and the other thing is like, okay, if you have 2 hours in the morning that you don't have meetings, then like try to set yourself a time to do something in that time. So like using the calendar in that way has been helpful. And also, and like even more when you're trying to balance work and study. So okay, you have your schedule for classes, you have your schedule for meetings, and then like separating blocks of time for each of your tasks, super important. And then I was using also another tool for project management and note taking and like checklists, which is Notion. Not sure if you guys have heard of it. Notion is a great tool. Also, like if you're building like an internal wiki at your company, that's a great resource as well. Even for building like simple websites. We actually built a website at the Acceleration Club using Notion. So like super versatile, easy to use, no code at all required, and even for notes. So it's basically like you have everything that you have in your brain organized in your Notion space.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for me, like as for organization, like you said, personally, I'm not the best at it either. I've been trying to work on the calendar side of it because right now it's all stored in my mind, right? So I've been trying to kind of fix that so it's more organized. That's still a work in process, but like kind of on the company side, I use a bunch of different things. So I kind of work with a bunch of people in 1099s and contractors for various different roles. So what I do is I use a program called Trello to kind of organize everything. And what that is it's more of like an organization board, right? So you have different checklists that you can put on there. It's kind of similar to Notion in that kind of aspect, but you can make different checklists. You can assign different things to different people. Then, for example, my contractors will see that, they'll get that done, they'll check it off. So each person kind of has a list of things they need to do. I kind of know who needs to do what. And I have like two different people that kind of do the same thing, right? If one person is more than the other, I'll kind of shift that. So they kind of have an even amount. So it kind of, they get it done at the same time. So, I mean, like a tool like that has been amazing for me. Other tools wise, like I'd say like the big thing has been like the calendar, like I'd said, I've been trying to work on that. On the financial side, I've been using like QuickBooks for the longest time. So, there are plenty of other alternatives to that. But I'd say if you're starting a company, even if you, don't need it at the time, I would definitely look into that because it helps you organize yourself for the future as well. So, yeah.
Trello is great. I've used it a lot as well.
Yeah, Trello is amazing. Shout out to Trello. So how did you like decide your role when you first made your company, like on paper, I guess, as the founder? Did you kind of choose to have any co-founders, or why did you choose to only do it yourself if that's the case?
Yeah, no, that's not the case. So our company was highly technical. I had like the business background of it. I knew the industry very well. I had worked on it for 8 years before I started the company. So I knew I needed co-founders. I knew I needed technical co-founders and two particular roles. First, the CTO or like software engineering role, and then the data science or like applied AI role. So that's rarely the case that you can find both talents in the same person. Probably there's a case, but it's not like very stereotypical. So in my case, I reached out to an old friend that we had worked together in the past. We had actually run a company together in the past. And I knew he was still engaged with a company that he had just sold, but he might be available in the future months right after we talked. So yeah, I talked to him, and fortunately, things came along well. He also was really interested in the challenge, and we started working on it. Then we reached out to our third co-founder, which was also a friend of him from previous years, and this guy was finishing his PhD in France, and then the topic of his PhD was, or the thesis of his PhD was closely related to what we're doing in terms of AI and computer vision. So that's how the team came together. So I'm acting as CEO. So I take care of the business part of the company. I do sales, fundraising, one part of product as well. And then someone is building the SaaS platform, and then the other co-founder is building the artificial intelligence models that are consumed by the SaaS platform to make it work.
Very nice. So just a question on my part on that is for the
David,
AI.
both you guys, before you go, you got such great content. You're doing absolutely wonderful. Can you move to those microphones over there?
Yeah, sure.
The camera wants to get you from the other side.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So
Okay.
you were saying?
Yeah. So on the AI side, right? So are you contracting that out, or you say you have a founder kind of working on the actual programming side of that as well, right?
Right. So we did start it by using some existing AI models, especially for computer vision. But then we reached a point of precision where we needed to like train our own models, because like our core value proposition is focused on precision, efficiency, and like hyper specialization in the fashion industry. So we reached a point where we needed to develop our models.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, very nice. So our next question is on the financial side. Were there any financial considerations you had to take when making your company, or any kind of hurdles you had to go through?
Yes. So I would say there's like two groups. First, when you have an idea and you have a founding team which is capable of executing that idea, you can start and you can reach a certain point of traction, and that can be either revenue or that can be pilot customers, even if they're not paying you, but at least you have a product that you can show to the world and you can see how you can eventually make money out of that product. So fortunately, we were able to bootstrap with our own resources until the point where we had a prototype working. And then that allowed us to get our first letter of intent and to see how we could help fashion companies improve profits based on our service. So that allowed us to start raising money from investors. So like, just a big disclaimer here, I don't believe venture capital is the right way to go for every company. That was the case for us in particular, because we're building a product that was very expensive. That's almost always the case for enterprise SaaS or B2B software as a service. And even more in our case, where it had like a big AI component that needed to be built. So we need to hire a team, we need to pay salaries. So that's why we decided to go raise venture capital.
Okay.
We started raising from friends and family / angels. Then we raised from an early stage VC fund, and we are also currently raising a funding round.
Gotcha. So do you have any kind of advice when it comes to the whole VC side of things? Like, how do you kind of get your company in a position where you can kind of go to venture capitalists, angel investors, and kind of show them your company and get investments from them? So do you have any advice for anyone on that?
Yeah, I would say if you're planning to raise venture capital, what VCs like are or at least early stage VCs, right? Which is pretty much our case. It's three things. First, you need to show you need to show it is a $1 billion opportunity, a $1 billion exit opportunity. So if you want to build a $1 billion company, you need three things. You need a huge market, so potentially a $100 billion market, right? And you need to show it from either a tops-down approach or a bottom-up approach for calculating your total addressable market. That's theory, but that's helpful. That's how you present it in your pitch deck. Second of all, you need to show that your team is the right team to execute on that idea and get to that point in the market, right?
Definitely.
And then you need to show how the traction that you have built so far makes your product the right product also to capitalize on that. So I think like working on those three things, and the third one is closely related to traction as well. If you have paying customers or you have pilot customers that are using the product and your product is proving efficiency, that's key.
Yeah, and I think to kind of add on to that too, what I've kind of noticed, and which might seem obvious, but for me personally, it really wasn't, is you need to kind of make your vision seem clear to not just yourself, but everyone else. Because in your mind, you think your company is the best thing in the world. You think it's perfect. You have the complete vision of what it's going to be, 5 days down the road, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. But most people, especially investors, won't see that at all. So you need like a physical example to kind of show them, whether that's a presentation, if your thing's physical, a prototype, something like that. For me personally, I've been fortunate enough to not really need any sort of investors. It kind of built itself to the point where I am now. But what I kind of noticed is if I want to work with brands, they're not going to see the same vision for a game that I kind of have. I'm going to have to show them, artwork, concept art. I'm going to have to show them numbers to kind of show why making a game is an amazing idea. I have to show them examples because only a few companies have done it. And the companies that have done it, unfortunately, haven't really done that well. So I have to kind of show them why it would be a good move for them and what they did wrong. So that's been like the main struggle for me, which I think I'm finally getting to the point where like I'm understanding that and I know what to show them, but it's just putting it all together, which is going to be fun.
That's true. And yeah, like not everyone needs to be an expert in the industry that you're tackling. So you're the expert in your industry. So you better make sure that you're being clear enough with your audience, in this case, investors, about why there is a problem in your industry and why your solution is the right one for their industry or for the problem, even if they're not an expert in the industry. So yeah, that's a great comment.
Definitely. And I guess based on that too, like where do you see your company in 5 years, 10 years in the foreseeable future? Like what's your personal vision for the company, both I guess financially, size wise, and just overall your full vision for it?
Yeah, so like how it all started was there's a huge problem in the industry that we want to solve. So I would say if we can solve that problem, that's a huge victory for us. Like we believe that that's a way to make a positive impact in the world. So regardless of the number of logos that we have on our website, the number of clients that we have, the revenue that we have, if we're making a sizable impact in reducing overproduction and waste and improving efficiency in the industry, that'll be a huge win for us. Of course, if we do a good job in that sense, that would yield to having many customers and then a company that is being valuable, right?
Definitely.
And yeah, that's the idea. Like if you would ask me, I would rather have this company and operate the company for the next 10 years and do a great job at it that exiting in 2 years just because someone is willing to pay for it.
Definitely, yeah. That's a great vision for it as well. And what that's kind of what a lot of companies face is either they have like a full vision, they want to take it 10 years down the road, or they just want a quick exit. And it's very cool to see that you want to take it fully down the road and you just don't want to exit at the start. Obviously, stuff might come up, right? But I mean, that's definitely a cool route or road to go down. And I guess that kind of brings up, like in my case, for example, what I want to do is like for the past like 5 to 6 years, I've been making kind of games by myself, hiring stuff out. So like my vision for, I guess, my company would be to have like full-time employees in the future. So I kind of don't have to worry about, okay, this contractor is working with this person, so I'm not going to go with them. So that's something I guess I really want to get dialed down and focused on. The next thing, I want to work with multiple different companies. Like I think that's like the next step in my company, for example, is bringing in these brands and having like another revenue source, for example, because I think that's been the most crucial thing. Player base wise, I've done tremendous, right? I've had games with, I don't know, like 10,000 players in it once, 15,000, 5,000, 30,000. You can imagine. So I think the next thing is like, how do I expand my revenue, right? And kind of branch that off and gain another revenue source. And I think that's, the best addition that I've thought of so far. And I can't wait to actually incorporate that. So kind of showing these numbers to these companies has been amazing. And for the most part, a lot of companies now are trying to reach the new generation, Generation Z. And so far they're going through like social media, like everyone's for the most part is trying to get to TikTok, YouTube, all of that stuff. But what they're not seeing is, for the most part, a lot, or what they're starting to notice, like the whole corporate world, is kids love video games, right? You've seen the concerts on multiple different sources, and regular companies are trying to get their foot in the door too. So I want to jump right on that, and that's kind of been my goal for that.
Wow. Super impressive. You've
Definitely
got big plans, man.
Yeah, and I mean, after that, I mean, for the foreseeable future, that's kind of what I want to do. Who knows what I'll do after that? There's always another company to, there's always another venture. So I'm excited for that.
And always in the video game space?
Oh, I mean, like, that's kind of where I started. So, I mean, like, down the road, I think that is kind of like what I want to do, is something in that space. I mean, if something else comes up, like I might, but for the foreseeable future, it may lead me somewhere else. But I want to stick kind of like in the video game space and where I've been, because I mean, that's like what I know best, right? For you, it's like the fashion industry. So, and I can imagine you want to stand for that, or in that industry, for as long as you can.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of wrap it up, right? What advice would you give to student founders and people in school trying to start their own company?
I would say the best advice again is playing the student card every time you can. That's a huge one. And then this pretty much goes for everyone. Like, find something you love. Like, find a problem you really are passionate about, because the road is going to be really long. You're going to face multiple obstacles. So if you're truly committed to accomplishing that mission, to solving that problem, to fixing whatever you're trying to fix, you're going to be able to persevere and try once and again, and like be strong in the face of adversity, which is a huge component of an entrepreneur's success. So I would say, at least in my case, it has been super powerful. Like, I don't care if an investor thinks this is not a big enough problem. I don't care if a customer thinks we're not capable of doing what we're promising that we're gonna do, because I believe that we're doing something amazing. I believe that we're trying to do something that no one has even ever done before, and that's why it may take some time and some investment. But at the end of the day, we're sure that we're making a huge impact in the industry, and that's what matters to us.
Definitely.
So like finding that sweet spot of something you're passionate about that resonates with your skills and your vision of your professional life, it's gonna fuel you with energy and passion to overcome obstacles.
Definitely, yeah. And I think in my case, like I used to see being a student as kind of like a disadvantage, right? Because you have all these people that are experienced, that have tons of experience. But for example, I'm starting somewhere, right? I'm starting at the age of, I think I started when I was like 15 or somewhere around then. And I had at the time, it didn't seem like I had an advantage because I was so young. But I mean, like throughout the years, I've gained knowledge that some people, have spent 20 years, building up, right? So it's like if you're starting at an early age, imagine X amount of time from now, you're building so much knowledge and, you're building so much experience for the next X amount of years. You're going to be able to do so much more, which has been amazing to me.
Absolutely. And you're always, that's like the student version of the imposter syndrome, probably, right? Like, and that's the one you have now, but then I have my own version of it, and everyone has their own version of it. But if you can, or someone gave me this advice once, actually it was an investor, but it was a great piece of advice, which is like always try to picture yourself as why are you the top 1% in the world at doing something in particular. So in your case, you're the top 1% of the world at building video games in Roblox, right?
Yeah.
And then that fuels you again with energy and like a sense of that, even though I have a lot of things to learn and obstacles to overcome, I do have what it takes to build what I'm doing.
Definitely. And like kind of to build off too, like once you get that hype and you have that drive from something, you start to realize something just as small as that, like it takes your work and you'll be able to work so much more. Like sometimes, like for your company, for example, have you ever gotten, I guess, for like burnt out for X amount of time, then something's happened where you're like, oh, I've done this for how long? X amount of time. I can keep doing it. And you just regain that motivation. Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Yes, every day.
Really?
Yeah, like it's going to sound like a cliche, a bit tacky, but yeah, being a founder is a roller coaster of emotions. And every day, like you can have 3 wins and then 1 huge loss, and then you feel disappointed, and then you talk to a customer and they say, "I love your product," and then you're super pumped again. And like I believe, like try to have enough perspective of how you're making progress, even though you're taking 1 step or 2 steps forwards, 1 step backwards. That's something that it's gonna give you confidence. And there's also something, a theory that says that there's like the rule of thirds when you're trying something new. So when you're trying something new, if you're actually getting out of your comfort zone, you can feel great 1/3 of the time, but for sure you're gonna feel okay 1/3 of the time, and you're gonna feel terrible 1/3 of the time. And if that's the case, it's because you're improving, you're doing something that it's new, that it's out of your comfort zone. So I think it's more about learning how to live in that, with that ambiguity, more than trying to make it not be there.
Definitely. Yeah, I know that's definitely big. I mean, for me personally, like I'd say not so much now, but in the past, right? So I deal with a lot of kids playing my games, obviously. And honestly, kids can be pretty harsh, right? They don't really watch what they're saying. Something comes on their mind and they just say it. There have been games where I've worked on them for 6 months, and believe it or not, those have been probably my worst games. So I've had kids go up to me and say, "This is the worst game I've ever played. I don't like it for blah, blah, blah reason." But I mean, like at the same time, they're saying that. But once you start hearing that, it starts building up. Okay, I actually have something really wrong with this game. So I fixed it, started to do a little better. But I mean, like that game, for example, I'm talking about didn't do as good. But once you start to listen to those negative comments, which I mean, in my case, might come across a bit harshly just because of the age. Once you start to listen to them, it can actually really improve your product. So has anything like that happened to you as well, where you've gotten some negative feedback, but it's actually really helped you improve your product?
Yeah, I would say the SaaS version of it is you start working on a piece of software that you're going to deploy, and then you try to make it better and better and better before you deploy it, because you want to make sure that you're going to deploy it at the right time with all the features that the customer is going to need. And then after months of work, you deploy it, and the customer goes like, "Oh yeah, but I wasn't thinking on that. I'm still missing these features." So like if you can ship as fast as you can and then try to make the right calls in terms of the features to add. That's going to be better because you're always going to be missing something. So being like super receptive and humble in terms of like understanding the feedback in a constructive way, and like being aware that the ones that know what your product should have are actually the users who are experiencing the pain or playing the game, in your case, every day, right? And probably for those kids, they are experts, top 1% in the world at playing games, and they've seen everything out there. So their time on your game to provide you feedback is actually super valuable. So yeah.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I've actually never really looked at it that exact way before, but that's definitely completely valid. And just to kind of go back to something we previously talked about, companies. I don't know if you're currently working with any fashion companies right now, but how did you get that first deal, and how much work did you put in, and were you kind of denied by any other companies before you got that initial deal?
Yeah. So I think something that's important there is that you need to find that niche in your market that has the largest pain, right? Because those that have the largest pain are going to be able to say yes, even though you're a startup that is launching your first product, and that there might be a huge risk related to that product. It's not going to be perfect for sure, but the pain is so large that they're going to be able to take the risk, right? So like finding that set of users, or in our case, companies that share that problem. So in our case is multi-brand retailers. So when you carry 10 different brands, that's probably 10,000 products. And then those 10,000 products, you need to pick the top 500 to have in your stores. That's a terrible amount of work, and the room for error is huge. So they're going to be prone to try something new, even though it's not perfect, that is going to help them save time and save money. So yeah, like finding that space in the market, it's going to be able to iterate quickly and find value in your product.
Definitely. Yeah, that's very insightful. In my case, I guess the big thing too is when I first started to kind of look for brands, I didn't really try and kind of think about which brand would kind of work with me best. I kind of just thought of, okay, I have these connections with these bigger brands. Let me try and go to them. I don't know if it'll work, but I would kind of try to think of a way to kind of incorporate them. And I think kind of taking that approach was probably good at the time. But looking back, if you think about the actual like basic stuff that I do down to the bare bone, making a video game. Will someone want to play a video game with a company that does, I mean, I haven't worked with the company, but off the top of my head, like let's say you have like a data company, right? Will a kid find working with a data company very interesting? Probably not, right? Mm-hmm. But then if you look on the other side of it, what about like some toy company, right? Like Hasbro or something like that. They would probably love to play something like that. So I think that's been the main thing I've been focusing on too is, okay, let me think as a kid real quick. Right. I was a kid at one point, still kind of am. What would I kind of want to play? Would I want to play a game focused around this company that does data, this company that does, I don't know, plumbing, or this company that does toys, right? Probably this toy game, right? That would probably connect with people the most. They would get the best engagement on their side. And I'd probably have the best examples of that. So, I mean, that's kind of what I've realized and has helped me the most is just that right there.
Yeah, that's having like product sense and understanding what customers want, and that's very important to have like that the founder market fit. That is always so important, right? So that's a great way of putting it.
Definitely. And I think we're getting near our time, right?
We're about 15 minutes, so we can go around and get some questions. I've got a question for the two of you, because you are juggling a lot as a student, and we've got some students listening to this. One thing that's true for everybody, we are what we consume. And so we're talking about the day in the life of a founder in college, where there's a famous freshman 15 and all that world. You're responsible for what you put in your body. How do you guys take care of what you eat to give yourself the energy to do all the things that you're doing for your business? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll start off on that one. So I used to, starting off, obviously, you can imagine, being on the computer pretty much all day. I didn't really have the best nutrition and diet. And personally, looking back, I wouldn't say I was in the best shape, especially what I was putting into my body. A lot of quick food, fast food. What can I make fast to get back to work, right? But I'd say starting like, I don't know, sophomore year, or I'd say like over the summer, right when I got out of my dorm, over the summer, I was like, okay, I need to start taking better care of my body, especially if I want to do this long term. I need to take way better care of myself. So I had a few friends at the time in college that were like big on the gym, and they kind of, helped me step my foot in the gym. I'd wanted to kind of do it for a while, but I just didn't know how. And what happened was he kind of talked to me. He said he got to it by doing X amount on his own. If you go to someone in the gym, they'll literally tell you anything. They'll help you. They want to help you. So I kind of did that first. I'd say probably like 2 months. I didn't know what I was doing. Then I kept going, got in better shape, actually watched what I was eating. And I started to actually notice that I was feeling a lot more awake, especially with the hours. Like there'll be some nights where, like during the summer, for example, where I would have to stay up till like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., not so much this summer, but in the past. And I kind of got a handle on that. But I'd say that's kind of a struggle too, is, I need to actually get some sleep. I need to go to sleep at a reasonable hour. I need to wake up at a reasonable hour. Because at one point, yeah, like I said, I was waking up at probably like 8 a.m., going to bed at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., then waking up again to get stuff for the company done. So that's been like a big thing for me. What about you?
And you're a warrior.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So let me start by saying I need to sleep at least 6 hours a day. Like, to me, that's non-negotiable. I just don't function at that speed. That's super impressive. But I do agree with you that exercise is key. Like in terms of food, I think, yeah, like having a balanced diet, it's always very important. Like some carbs and vegetables and protein and all that. But to me, exercising has been key. Like, and especially for balancing stress and for relieving stress. Like every day I'm super stressed, and at the end of the day I go out for a walk. That's something that really helps. Or when I start the day by waking up a little earlier and exercising, that changes the face of the day. So like building up a routine, like whatever routine means to you and whatever habits you believe make the more sense for yourself. To me, living within that routine changes everything. Like if when I'm traveling a lot, or right now I'm moving. So I was in Boston for the past 2 years. Now I'm moving to Miami, and I stopped in Colombia for 2 weeks, and then I slept at different friends' houses in Miami and all that. That kills me. Like not having a routine, it's hard. So I would say yes, exercise and routine. That's perfect.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely with school too. I mean, getting back into school right now, that adds even more stress on, right? I mean, so luckily right now, I'm not on that kind of like weird schedule that I was on before. And I mean, like right now, I do need my 8 hours. So, I mean, that's been nice too. Yeah, definitely. Any other questions? Yeah.
For a software solution company at an early stage, as student founders, what would you suggest to another one, whether he or she should start bootstrapping itself, or would they want to go to a investor for investment, or bootstrapping is a better way? Because I believe for a startup services company, the initial cost wouldn't be that much to start with, and self-funding would be much better rather than an investor. What would be your suggestion on this?
Would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll start off on that. So I mean, in school, I mean, personally here at Suffolk, I don't know about other schools, but there are plenty of resources you can take advantage of, right? And you have alumni that want to help you, right? So, I mean, in some shape, way, or form, if you have an idea, you can definitely find someone that would either partner up with you or would invest in you. I guess it really depends on where you go, what your school is. But I mean, for me personally, I mean, I didn't personally need investments, but I mean, looking in the future, I definitely could see that I could take advantage of people that went here, get different investments from people, possibly give up equity if I had to, right? But I think that's definitely, I mean, in my eyes, the way to go. But I think it does really depend on the company too.
Yeah, I'd say along those lines, the further you can go without raising money from external investors, the better. I would say if you have to give up equity, try to do it to you with, like, among your co-founders. It's better to get an extra or two extra pairs of hands in order to be able to execute faster and better. So the longer you can go without external investors or external money capital, the better. Unless there is a huge threat that you're going to be replaced by someone who is able to raise a lot of capital real quick, right? So if your business can be threatened by someone who's going to go and raise, and then just by raising, they're going to be able to, let's say, invest more in marketing, and they're going to overcome what you have done in a short period of time, then go raise. Otherwise, I would say try to go as fast as you can without raising.
So to the other side of external investing comes mentorship, if you would look at it. So would you think that would be another positive side to it, or would you rather speak to the mentors that are there in our alumni services, or like alumni connections, or external investing would be rather, because when you go to a venture capital or an angel investor, they come with experience, and experience in a particular sector would be rather beneficial rather than the equity that I'm giving out. So do you think that is a better option, or what is the contrary solution for it?
Yeah, I would say in the case, so if that's your case, I do agree with you that having that extra piece of advice and mentorship from angels who have been in your industry, probably former founders of companies in a similar space, that's super valuable. And if they have skin in the game and they have vested interests in terms of having invested in your company, that's powerful. So yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I mean to kind of add on to that too, like I said before, I think it really depends on what kind of industry you're in. If there are alumni, for example, that you don't have to give up equity to, and they'll just mentor you and give you advice, like if they've had a similar company or they've gone down a similar road, I think that's definitely a way to go. But if you do need capital and you can't get it any other way, I think, if you can find an angel investor in that same realm who will give you the money and experience, I think that's definitely the way to go.
If they're going to be able to help you with the same intensity, and they're going to dedicate you the same amount of time without investing in your company, yeah, that's a great formula. That would be like the best of both worlds.
So hi, this question is going to be for David. So you said you had a third co-founder from France, right? So what are the generally the difficulties of having a co-founder from another country, and what did he face in your company?
Okay, he's also from Colombia. He was studying in France, his PhD, but we grew up in the same country, so there's no language barriers or like time zones issues. But to your point, I have had experiences in the past working with partners from other cultures and different time zones and that. And I believe like if you talk the same language in terms of your motivations, your work ethic, and your beliefs in terms of what the company should look like in the future, all the other friction in terms of language barriers, time zones, whatever, goes to a second stage.
Thank you.
So both of you have industries that are known for major disruption, all right, gaming, fashion. How do you plan ahead for that, given you're still at fairly early stages of your long journey?
I mean, you can't really prepare too much for the inevitable. If something's going to happen, it happens. A couple of weeks ago, for example, Roblox, I think, was taken down for like a whole day or something because of like cyber attacks. They just different stuff like that. So nobody was able to get on the website. I mean, luckily for me, like there's still some stuff I can do. I'm not too reluctant on being on Roblox, right? I mean, like whenever that happens, my revenue source is completely gone, right? I'm not making money that whole time it's down because nobody's playing games, because nobody can play games. But I mean, on the preparation side and actually getting stuff done, I mean, honestly, for me, if it's not for too long, it does have its benefits, right? I update a good amount of my games weekly and pretty often, right? So, I mean, having to actually prepare for these updates can be pretty stressful, especially for, contractors I have globally. Like I have people that I hire over in Turkey, India, different places like globally. So being able to give them more time in cases like that have actually been beneficial. And they do use like external programs to actually make this stuff, which is, it's not the worst case.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure I have the right answer for it, but I would say like always trying to get the upside of that disruption, like being the disruptor as opposed of the disrupt, right? And being early stage startups, I think we are in that position where we can we can analyze and take a look of the status quo as things are right now, and how things should be improved, and go fill in those gaps. So, for example, in our case, not sure about how familiar you guys are with the fashion industry, but like Zara has been the main disruptor for the last 2 decades, and now Shein and other similar companies are starting to come in with like greater analytical capabilities and shorter supply chains, and they're even disrupting this like Zara now, right? So like trying to understand those patterns always from the side of the industry, being very close to the market, to your customers, understanding what are their pains and how well other solutions out there are being able to solve them. I think it's what gives you that product sense and market sense that is gonna make you the disruptor and not the disrupted, or hopefully.
And I can actually add on to that a little. There was like a venture capitalist funded company that did try to come to Roblox, for example. And what ended up happening was they tried to bring the whole corporate mindset to Roblox, which, it's a bunch of independent developers that kind of make their own games starting at a young age. And what they did was they hired a bunch of, younger individuals, and they gave them like strict deadlines, started telling them to do X, Y, and Z. Were pretty harsh. And what ended up happening was inside that company, they were doing amazing for the longest time, acquired a bunch of games, but they kind of took a corporate approach. And, once they started to do that, they started to kind of have a downfall trend. And that's kind of what ended that whole thing.
Great answers, great session. We got a couple of minutes left. And so if both of you can answer one more quick question, then we're going to be done because it cuts us off right at 5:30. Okay. So quick question, quick answers.
Okay, so taxes, the way we manage our taxes really affects our profitability. And you just quickly mentioned that you hire global contractors. Do you have any tips for us? Because I'm sure a lot of us outsource, whether it's like cheaper, really expensive talent. Would love to hear your tips on this and what you've discovered.
Yeah, I mean, from the start, that was kind of something I looked into. Tax-wise, I mean, if you're incorporated, I mean, that just counts as a regular expense, right? I mean, different countries have different regulations. For example, I mean, right now, I can't hire anyone from Russia, right? So I had a few people from Russia before that I just wasn't able to hire before, or I can't hire now because of everything going on. But I mean, that's kind of the major thing is every single person you hire, if they're under a 1099, they'll count as an expense. I've kind of looked at hiring people as actual employees, but I mean, looking on the number side, going in the future, if I'm a smaller company, I'd rather, pay someone X amount of money to do one small task rather than give them a salary, just because at the smaller level, right, you're gonna need to save that capital for other stuff and other projects. So hopefully that answers your question.
To hire external contractors, I've been in other countries. I've been using Deal. Not sure if you've heard of that platform, Deal. And yeah, I've had a great experience with them so far.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much everything we can get to, if I'm right.
That is it.
Perfect.
And both of you guys, thank you all for being here. You did amazing.